So, is it possible to beat the infamous Hunter and Gunslinger combo? Now, the short answer is yes, and quite easily so. However, it is kind of a nuisance to do, so much so that I actually wouldn't recommend doing it unless it is a playstyle that you actively really want. And annoyingly, it only works with weapons that are single shot. Here we go again. Now, there are a few downsides to this, and there are going to be as many downsides as many people are not going to enjoy this sort of playstyle. So, the big ones really is your upfront damage is not going to be as high as Hunter Gunslinger just passively. It is going to be relying on buffs. Not consumables per se, but your actual skills. The second one being is one of the skills that you would need to use is really, really good at getting you frigging killed on repeat. And the final really big downside is, although it will work with any weapon that is a single shot, it's best off with Spore Bloom simply due to the fact that this forces you to lose your range advantage because your full buff is only active when you are within 10 meters. On screen now is the full equation for the full buff of just Hunter with Shroud active. 90% weapon damage, we get 115% weak spot, 5 crit chance, all in with burst, sustain, calculating weak spot averages, as well as your crit ratios, we end up with about 4.2 thousand DPS. And before anyone decides to tell me that's low, if we do the exact same thing but with Nightfall, we get 981. Now if we do the same thing again, back on track, back with Spore Bloom, with Gunslinger and Bulletstorm, we end up with an average DPS of just over 4k. So it's not quite as powerful as Hunter with Shroud, but it is actually very damn close. We're literally missing less than 200 damage. Despite the fact that Shroud gives a 50% increase in damage, where Bulletstorm just gives a fire rate increase and a decrease in your reload. I did mention in a previous video how powerful reload and fire rate are on one-shot weapons, right? Then we have this monstrosity. Now at base with just Challenger there is no competition. Both Gunslinger as well as Hunter will outperform Challenger, at the very least individually. However, Rampage. See, this is at max Rampage stacks, and this, although it won't beat Shroud, you're very close. You're 60 damage off, essentially. The problem is, Rampage can evolve into Berserk, which, does quite a bit more than what Shroud is capable of, in total, for everything. So, can we beat the Hunter Gunslinger combo? Yeah, Hunter Challenger. That looks a little bit like this. I was playing around with Shroud versus Hunter's Focus, and I did find that as long as you can get to about 60% crit chance, Hunter's Focus will actually outperform Shroud just because you're going to be critting more frequently, and considering both crit as weak points are multiplicative rather than additive, which is what Shroud is, yeah, you end up just doing more. Now, one thing to point out, that red screen thing that my character just did is the transition between Rampage and Berserk, which is where you basically just do double damage. It's just ridiculous. The downside to this is that animation is very consuming. It's meant to last like 15 seconds, but by the time you exit the animation, you've got like 12 seconds left. And during the animation, there is like a weird point of where you can't be damaged. But there is also a point that where you're still in like the tail end of the animation, but you can now be damaged. I would like to either see the damage mitigation be extended or just remove the animation to make this a lot more viable. There is also the issue of the cooldown of Rampage is utterly ridiculous. Granted, it is probably the most powerful skill in the game. Like, it's utterly ridiculous how strong Rampage actually is. Though it doesn't work on every weapon. For some odd reason, trying to get Rampage to work with Plasma Cutter just does not work. But hopefully this does answer the question of, can we outperform Hunter as well as Gunslinger? The answer is yes, and it is not exactly hard to do. It's just more of a, unless you like playing so that you can build up all this damage to unleash in like a 10-second window, and if you don't do it, you're kind of screwed. Yeah, it's not really going to be the playstyle for absolutely everyone. I imagine this would become more of a speedrunner style tactic. However, again, it does also mean that you have to be within 10 meters of the enemy. So, I then started playing around with, well, what one is actually better with Challenger, considering how powerful Rampage is. It's probably going to be more of a boss scenario, but in terms of actual playability, what one is going to be better in terms of the longevity of this build, Gunslinger or Hunter. And in true me fashion, we have Rampage with Hunter and Shroud active, and then Berserk with Hunter, Shroud active. Now, although this looks like some absolutely big shiny numbers, the real plus to this is just the simple fact of we can actively keep Shroud as long as it is our primary. We can actively keep Shroud active throughout the entire duration of both Rampage as well as Berserk, and then even after Berserk has ended, we are able to keep Shroud going, provided we have easy access to a weak point. As long as we're not fighting Legion or Keula, this shouldn't really be an issue. However, on the flip side, Gunslinger with Bulletstorm, or just Gunslinger in general, is actually going to do more than Hunter in this scenario. Simply just because we end up with a stupid fire rate and a non-existent reload, which means we're able to dish out some absolutely insane damage in a very short period of time. Shot for shot, we are going to be doing less. It is just the simple fact of we are firing more frequently, which is where a lot of the damage is going to be coming from. The absolute bad side to this is there is literally no way to keep Bulletstorm active throughout both Rampage as well as Berserk. You are going to have to pick one. You are either going to have to proc Rampage as well as Bulletstorm to build up all of the damage, hopefully get it all in a nice timely manner, and by the time Bulletstorm runs out, you will have Berserk, or the moment Berserk activates, activate Bulletstorm as well. This is going to be probably the highest DPS combination in the game. Like, I just can't beat it. It ends up being about 10,800 damage per second, sustained over 10 seconds. And as far as I've tested, nothing else actually can compete with this. If you go with Hunter, you can get higher numbers, as I showed in the fight against the Root Nexus. You're able to get over 10k, but it's considerably slower. This is going to be where the vast majority of the DPS in this build comes from. It is going to be how quick can you get that reload and how quick can you shoot. Luckily with Gunslinger, while you have Bulletstorm active, you just need to hold the shoot button down. It becomes fully automatic. You don't need to press, you just need to hold it down. And from there, you basically just spam the reload button and it will just continually cycle and allow you to do some absolutely ridiculous damage. And this is all well and good. Hopefully by this point we can all agree we are able to beat the Gunslinger Hunter combo, or Hugs as it is called. The question is, why would you? You're taking a decrease in your overall output for what is essentially going to be a mad 10 seconds where you hope you can get all of your damage out, and if the boss or the enemy decides to attack and you need to dodge or move away or run or heal, you've wasted so much time. And now both of these talents, Rampage as well as Bulletstorm, or even potentially Hunter Focus or Shroud, however it is you're deciding to go, are now going to be potentially on cooldown. Well, Rampage definitely will, which is where pretty much all of your damage is actually coming from. So why would you do this? And I can't answer that question. This is just how I play. This is what I do. I find this fun, building up everything for a mad 10 seconds and hoping for the best. But it doesn't always work out. Anyway, have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.